Hey everybody, it's the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm Aaron Mate, sitting in for Jimmy, here with Matt Taibbi, independent journalist who writes at taibbi.substack.com, lead reporter on the Twitter files. So Matt, let's go through your other new thread that you've just put out. It is called How Twitter Let the Intelligence Community In. So talk to us about what you reported here.
So basically, Twitter thought that the Russiagate story was not going to hit them. They were incredibly confident that this had nothing to do with them. You see all these emails saying, "Oh, we don't have a Russia problem. There is no coordinated activity. This is all the spotlight's all on Facebook. Let's keep the spotlight on Facebook." And they were way overconfident about this. And what ended up happening was the Senate Intelligence Committee led by Virginia Senator Mark Warner, the ranking Democrat in the committee, basically raked them over the coals and, he sort of asked them to keep producing material, which really translates to finding accounts that were linked to Russia. They eventually got the hint, but they were unable to find those links for a long time, and this created a political problem for them.
Yes, I have the clip here. Let's go to Mark Warner. This is, I think this is in the fall of 2017. And Mark Warner is really pushing this idea. And it was, by the way, it was invented by Democratic operatives, which I'll get to in a second, that Russian social media manipulated millions of Americans and brainwashed them into not voting for Hillary Clinton. That was a theory, like every other conspiracy theory in Russiagate, developed by Democratic Party operatives, which I'll get to in a second. But here is Mark Warner complaining that he's gone to Twitter and Twitter has not found the Russian bots. Where are they? So here he is.
Presentation that the Twitter team made to the Senate Intel staff today was deeply disappointing. The notion that their work was basically derivative based upon accounts that Facebook had identified showed an enormous lack of understanding from the Twitter team of how serious this issue is, the threat it poses to democratic institutions, and again, begs many more questions than they offered. Their response was, frankly, inadequate on almost every level.
So that's Mark Warner, Matt, livid that Twitter did not give him the Russian bots and memes that he wanted.
Yeah, so the day after this presser by Warner, one of the senior executives got an e-circular like asking for $5 or anything you can spare from the Warner campaign, and there's an email that says #irony by one of the executives. But the real problem was, he's basically saying your number of Russians was frankly inadequate on every level. And they went back and they formed what they called a Russia task force to look for more Russians, and they couldn't find them. And you see these sequential reports afterwards saying, like, we're not finding coordinated activity. And when they went back to them with that, that turned into a problem. But basically that was the pronouncement from Warner, is that we want you to find more. We want you to produce more material.
And they did the same thing with Facebook too. And let me read to you from a recent article that I wrote, which goes into this. It was based on actually the first round of Twitter files that you released that had to do with Hunter Biden's laptop and the suppression of reporting on that. So I wrote this article at my Substack, matthew.substack.com. The Twitter files reveal influence of Russiagate disinformation. And in this passage, I'm just quoting from the Washington Post here, because the Washington Post was the first to reveal the origin of this theory that Russian social media accounts had manipulated Americans into voting for Donald Trump and defeating Hillary Clinton. So this is what I write. In a long forgotten episode revealed by the Washington Post, Facebook was successfully pressured to prop up a Democratic generated claim that Russia posted deceptive social media posts as part of a, quote, far-reaching disinformation campaign designed to shape the outcome of the U.S. presidential race in 2016. When Facebook first came across pages created by suspected Russian operatives in late 2016 and early 2017, it found that its output, quote, had clear financial motives, which suggested they weren't working for a foreign government, according to the Post's account. Moreover, Facebook's experts did not find clear evidence of Russian disinformation or ad purchases by Russian-linked accounts. So the same thing as Twitter. When Facebook initially went looking for anything to do with Russia after 2016, they didn't find anything except for just some troll farm pages that they perceived as just being clickbait, trying to make money by attracting followers. But that wasn't enough for Mark Warner and the Democrats. So this is what happened. But while Facebook struggled to find clear evidence of Russian manipulation, other influential quarters helped the company see the light. In the aftermath of their 2016 humiliation, quote, aides to Hillary Clinton and Obama developed theories to help them, quote, explain what they saw as an unnatural turn of events in their loss of the 2016 election. So we lost an election. What could have happened? Well, this is one of the theories that they came up with. Among these theories, quote, and again, this is a quote in the Washington Post, Russian operatives who were directed by the Kremlin to support Trump may have taken advantage of Facebook and other social media platforms to direct their messages to American voters in key Democratic areas. Despite the fact they didn't have hard evidence, these creative-minded Democratic operatives found a very receptive audience. Mark Warner, the Senate Intelligence ranking Democrat, personally flew out to Facebook headquarters in California to press the Democrats' case. Not long after, in 2017, Facebook went public to parrot the evidence-free theories that Democratic operatives had generated. So all this starts with Democratic operatives, and your Twitter files that you've just come out with offer new evidence of how far their disinformation spread. It spread from Facebook to Twitter as well, and the pressure that was put on them to validate the theories that they came up with.
That's really interesting, and I actually wasn't aware of that, so that fits perfectly into what happened. So Facebook, I guess they were pressured previously, heading into August of 2017. Facebook started this ball rolling by deciding to go public in August of 2017 with this theory that they had 300 accounts on their site that were linked to the IRA. And they did this thing that Twitter was very unhappy with. They shared a group of accounts and some data, not only with Mark Warner and the Intel committee, but with Twitter. So now Twitter was sort of stuck in Facebook's mess, and they had the same data that Facebook had turned up. And Warner was unhappy, basically, that Twitter had not looked for additional accounts. Like, they didn't take the hint, basically, and hunt down additional accounts. But what Twitter did is they manually researched all of the accounts that Facebook looked at and didn't find anything. And that's where the tension was.
And all this helped fuel this Russia mania that consumed the country for many years. And it led to, among other things, this indictment by the special counsel Robert Mueller's team of this Russian troll farm. The very one that Mark Warner was telling Twitter was brainwashing Americans. And let's remember how Democrats responded to that news and how they described this troll farm account and its activity, which they really wanted Twitter and Facebook to validate. This is Gerald Nadler speaking on MSNBC.
Well, my reaction to the news is that this is absolute proof of what we knew all along and what the president has denied, namely that we were attacked. This was a very serious attack against the United States by a hostile foreign power, an attack against our election process, our entire governing process. We know that the attack is continuing, and that our intelligence agencies tell us that it's going to certainly continue through the next election. And the president and the Republicans in the House, for that matter, refuse to do anything about protecting us from an attack. Imagine if FDR had denied that the Japanese attacked us at Pearl Harbor and didn't react. That's the equivalent.
Well, it's a bit of a different thing. I mean,
no, it's not.
They didn't kill anyone.
They didn't kill anyone, but they're destroying our country.
Do you really think it's on? You think it's on par?
Not in the amount of violence, but I think in the seriousness, it is very much on par. This country exists to have a democratic system with a small d. That's what the country's all about, and this is an attempt to destroy that.
Wow, is that Chris Hayes pushing back there?
That was Chris Hayes pushing back when he was allowed to a little bit. I think that's dissipated.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, no, and what's hilarious about this is looking at this from the inside now, you see that Twitter's looking at the same data that Nadler's talking about, and they're coming to conclusions like, okay, we find 17 high-risk accounts, two of which are definitely connected to Russia, one of which is RT, and the rest, and the only two of them have significant spend. So that's Pearl Harbor right there. Two commercially significant accounts on Twitter, which has like gazillions of tweets, right? And they really pushed this news story, and reporters really they ate the whole meal on this thing. They swallowed it whole.
So what's going on here? You have some messages where someone writes, keep producing material. And you write, after meeting with congressional leaders, Crowell wrote, Warner has political incentives to keep this issue at the top of the news, maintain pressure on us and rest of the industry to keep producing material for them. And this is a great one. Crowell added, Dems were taking cues from Hillary Clinton, who that week said it's time for Twitter to stop dragging its heels and live up to the fact that its platform is being used as a tool for cyber warfare.
Yeah, she also said that week she spoke at Stanford and said that she had been the victim of a virtual Watergate, I think it was significant. This is one of the senior policy executives, Colin Crowell, at Twitter. The fact that he mentioned in an e-circular to a company that was overwhelmingly Democratic and was full of Clinton supporters, that the Intel committee was taking its cues from Hillary Clinton, that suggests to me that whatever happened in that meeting made a major impression on him. I'd like to learn more about that, but it was significant enough that he put it in the circular. Let's put it that way.
And Twitter even formed, you have this here, in growing anxiety over its PR problems, Twitter formed a Russia task force to proactively self-investigate. The Russia task force. Wow.
Yeah, they did. And they, again, when you see these reports, and they were giving their updates day after day, and they're like, yeah, we even widened our search terms and we're like not finding anything. So their problem is while they weren't finding anything, the news agencies were, right? They were talking to all these independent experts, and the quote unquote experts were saying, oh my God, look at all these nefarious accounts from Russia. And they would pull the same trick that happened later on, where they would basically write the story, and then just before press time, they would go to Facebook, and Facebook would be in this bind. Did we say yes or no? Sometimes they said yes, so as to look like they weren't going along with the Russian plot, but it ended up biting them for doing that.
And the news media, of course, goes crazy with this. And you flag one of the headlines that all this hoopla produced. This is a headline from the New York Times. Russian influence reached 126 million through Facebook alone. And if you remember this period, for those watching this, this was like manic. This was mania. This idea that these Russian social media accounts were brainwashing Americans. And this is one of the headlines that fueled it. Russian influence reached 126 million. This idea that Russian memes are brainwashing 126 million people just on Facebook. Imagine what they're doing elsewhere too. And of course, none of these stories ever showed what these actual Russian what this actual Russian influence entailed, because it was dumb memes that nobody actually saw. For example, like this meme of Yosemite Sam complaining that he can't use a gun anymore. That was one of the most popular Russian memes posted on Facebook.
Right.
Only a fraction had to do with the actual 2016 election, and most of it actually came well before the 2016 election or after it. But those are the figures that got, among many other facts, that got swept under the rug in this Russia mania.
Yeah, and I really wonder about some of the reporters in this instance. Like, they didn't have really any curiosity about what they were being told. That news story, that 126 million headline, was based on the same data, exactly the same data that Twitter was looking at when they concluded, that there were only 2 accounts with significant spend. So this is exactly the same stuff, that was basically a nothing burger to the company. But they twisted it around, and they played around with math and said, well, if you look at it in terms of how many tweets there were and how many people theoretically saw those tweets over a period of time, that's how they got that number, 126 million. It's ridiculous. It was 2,700 low-grade accounts with low engagement, below average engagement, and only a couple of them were really major accounts.
Everybody, we're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles in January and February in Los Angeles. And then we're going to Tempe, Palm Springs, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets and become a premium member while you're there.